Oh yeah, what's happening, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Weekly. Of course, you guys know myself. I'm Mike Spider Slayer from Comic Book Corner 2.0. And then, of course, I have Cat Comic Uno and Only Good Comics, Brant Fowler. And tonight we have some special guests. So, Cat, why don't you introduce our guest?
Yes. So if you guys have been following Radiant Black, the MassiveVerse, we got two creatives from that team. So Kyle and Michael, why don't you guys introduce yourself? Kyle first, and then Michael.
Sure. Yeah. So my name is Kyle Higgins. I am the co-creator and writer of Radiant Black, and I also creative direct the MassiveVerse, which is our shared superhero universe at Image Comics. And yeah, I do a bunch of stuff. I've been in comics for a long time. I did a big run on Nightwing for the New 52, Batman Eternal, Batman Beyond. Then I took over, or actually I launched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers for Boom Studios and wrote the first 3 years of that book and ran creative on that. And now we are doing our own thing at Image Comics and having a blast.
And I'm Ryan Parrott. No, Ryan couldn't be here, so I am filling in. I'm Michael Basudal. I am the designer and editor on the MassiveVerse books and also any other book that Kyle is responsible for, basically.
Yeah, I have a little creative collective studio called Black Market Narrative that we do all the books through, but we also do all sorts of other crazy stuff tied to the books, a lot of kind of multi-narrative and multimedia stuff for not only the MassiveVerse stuff, but then like other projects like, we did a graphic novel with Bear McCreary last year where the graphic novel gives a narrative to the track order of his heavy metal concept album called The Singularity. And so stuff like that. And then, we do like audio series and other live action stuff and some animation. And so everything ends up kind of through that collective. And basically I would be dead if it wasn't for Michael. That's really that's the long and short of it.
That's true. I have nothing to add about that.
So, like, when we're going back to hearing some of the stories that you've written, Kyle, it really blows my mind on how time really flies by. When I think about the New 52, and then you've written Nightwing and stuff like that, I was like, man, I remember that run, and I was just like, that's been a while ago already, So you've written quite a few things.
Me. Yeah, that was it was a really cool it was a cool era like of my life to think back on. It's very challenging. It was a very tricky time to be not only writing comics, but especially to be like a young and new writer, kind of really entering the industry. And I had done a bunch of stuff before that as far as like one shots and some mini series for both Marvel and DC. But I'd never written an ongoing series before they gave me Deathstroke. And then like a week before the New 52 was announced, they had a writing change in the Bat Office and they asked me to write Nightwing, which is my all-time favorite character. It's literally a big poster behind me from the Dixon McDaniel run.
That's cool.
And, there was a lot of pressure and attention on those books at that time. And I remember I was on the phone with Pete Tomasi at one point, like in the first year, just because it was just a stress pressure cooker every single day. And I was on the phone with Pete, who had been an editor at DC before he was a freelance writer. And I was like, is it always like this? He's like, no. He's like, no. Let me, this is a very different era right now. And there's not only a lot of cooks in the kitchen, but there's a lot of, there's a lot of pressure just on the books and the line because everyone meant well, but this is the first time that the company had rebooted in this way, really since Crisis on Infinite Earths. But you could even argue going back even further with brand new number ones across the board, like that hadn't happened before, and throwing out all the continuity in that way. So it definitely meant there were like a lot of factors happening and politics and all sorts of weird things kind of all at once, where you're also just trying to tell good stories and figure out as a new and young writer like how to do that consistently and navigate, having to turn in 6-month overviews every single month, and then editorial having 6 cracks at notes on stories you thought were approved, like over and over. And then you learn how to not turn in as much as much detail and to get things approved. And anyway, it was a very, very interesting, cool time, and I feel very lucky to have been able to basically learn and become a much better writer with and because of my favorite character. Like it's a pretty special relationship that not a lot of people get to have with their favorite characters.
Yeah, that is very cool.
So going into the Massive and Radiant Black and kind of everything that you learned about comics through Nightwing and Power Rangers and everything else, one thing I love about the MassiveVerse, and I've told you this a billion times, is your innovation. I feel like in comics and any entertainment, you need to learn how to market yourself and you need to learn how to brand yourself. And you guys have been brilliant with that. And how do you guys constantly keep fresh with that? And what are things you've learned from your marketing strategies and something that you feel like is going to be fresh coming into 2025?
Well, first of all, I appreciate that, and I appreciate that every time you tell us that. It's very kind. I think the crux of it is actually that we don't view it as marketing, and so there certainly is marketing. There's a marketing component, and that's stuff that we're literally right now building out kind of a new presence for with content creators and doing things like reels. And I'm literally talking into like a DSLR that's like very, very not greatly perched on a stack of books right now above my monitor because I don't have a mount yet, because we're trying to raise more general awareness from a marketing standpoint about all the, not only the books, but all the kind of cool and outside the box stuff we've done. The outside the box stuff we've done, though, there's definitely a sellable component to some of that stuff, but it all comes from a place of narrative. So like, for example, with Radiant Black, like all the superpowers come from miniature black holes. So when we do these issues that take place entirely inside these like existential black hole realms or realm, we do it all with fluorescent Pantone ink. So the whole book is a blacklight comic, right? It comes out of like what the story is about and trying to capture that kind of experiential component and that otherworldly quality and put readers in the shoes of the characters in that way. Rogue Sun, Ryan did a brilliant issue with Rogue Sun where it's a choose your own adventure story. But the reason for it is because it's the first issue where Dylan no longer has his estranged dead father's ghost haunting him, like in his ear, like, questioning every single choice he makes and every move he does. And so now this is the first time Dylan is on his own making choices for himself. And so Ryan wants to put readers in the character's shoes and play with the medium in a way that really just kind of creates that level of immersion that you don't really see in traditional comics. And I think that's where it really comes back to for us is like, it's gotta fit narratively and be thematically kind of on point with both the concept as well as the larger themes that the story is looking to explore. But it all comes from a place of like immersion. And I write the books I write, especially at this point in my career, because I love comics and I love superheroes. I don't necessarily love them in the way that I did for most of my life growing up. I mean, that's kind of one of the things that happens when you do something professionally is like, you kind of have to give up your fandom to some extent. Like that's a little bit of like the price of entry. But I remember what it was like to get really excited about things, and especially in superhero kind of storytelling. And that included everything, not only from comics, but animated series and novelizations and original novels, and of, Christopher Golden and Greg Cox and Diane Duane did these amazing novels in the 90s of Spider-Man and the X-Men and Daredevil and all these things. And then soundtracks, scores for the different superhero movies that were coming in the late 90s and early 2000s. And so it's like, how do we create that level of kind of like excitement for a new generation? So much of these books is about celebrating being a fan of superheroes as well. And so again, leaning on that wherever we can create things that feel immersive, to me, it's putting a little bit of magic back into the world, as we're trying to kind of create that feeling that also inspired us in the first place, not only as fans, but then to become ultimately creators ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, those little additions to the books that you guys put in there is awesome. You're talking about the ones with the black lights, which was cool. And then I remember the one that had the QR code that had like the little episode in it. And what made that so special is that it gave them a voice. It was like its own little episodic show. And then it's like when you're reading that comic, it was kind of like, oh wow, that's now what I hear in my head, and that was so cool.
Yeah.
So creative. I love that.
Well, that one in particular, for those who don't know, I think you're referring to, so Radiant Black 15. It's the issue where Radiant Black goes up against his greatest challenge yet, creative license. So there is an unauthorized YouTube fan film that is being made called Versus, and it pits, it's like who'd win in a battle. It's kind of like death battle, format. Who'd win in a fight between Radiant Black and, the hero Blaze from the 1960s, from actually from our book Cowl, which is also part of the universe. This issue, this series Cowl, is actually based on my college thesis film, The League, which is what started my career. So without spoiling too much here, the real Radiant Black gets a hold. Marshall's Radiant Black at this point, and he gets a hold of the script and gets pissed off because he realizes he loses. So he shows up on set to chew out the director, and then chills out when he discovers that they've cast Batman Beyond, Will Friedle, to play him. That's actually Will in the book. Hold up, did you get Batman Beyond to play me? We did. Okay, that's actually pretty dope. I think Eric Matthews with superpowers. That's totally what we were thinking. And so he offers to help him out and do all the visual effects in camera, give him some money. But he has some thoughts on the story. So a few pages later, as the characters are navigating this kind of like tricky dynamic in their friendship, and Nathan ends up kind of punching up the script because he's a writer. And he ends up writing a speech that gets to the heart of what being Radiant Black really is supposed to be about. You don't know what that speech is. You watch in the aftermath of the film as the two best friends walk away and basically have this kind of like little bit of a change in their friendship. It's a little bit of kind of a breakup where Marshall's saying, I need this to be my thing and do it on my own. And so it's kind of bittersweet. We then did this as a surprise. And anyone who's watching the stream right now, I don't want to take you away from the stream, but maybe come back to this after we're done. If you scan that QR code that you see on screen, it will actually take you to a 5.5-minute fully animated short film where Will Friedle voices Radiant Black, and all of the actors from my college film 15 years ago from The League, they've come back to play the characters Blaze and the Grey Raven again.
That's so funny.
Christopher Carter from Batman Beyond did all the music for it. And this is the film they made in the book. And by the end of it, you actually see the speech performed by Will Friedle. And this totally works entirely on its own, the short film. But if you've read the comic, it takes on extra meaning and context because of you understand the behind the scenes of it all.
Honestly, that puts a lot of time.
Yeah, that's awesome.
and obviously that puts a lot of time and energy for you guys. Like, comics already take a lot of time and energy. Like, what makes you decide I'm going to go all out and
She froze.
making
Yeah, I
the
think Cat
which
froze.
is so much time,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I can't stop Kyle from doing these things. I've tried. God,
I think I
tried.
paused, right?
You
Yeah,
did.
we
You
got the
froze a
gist.
little.
You're good.
Am I back?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So what I was saying is that obviously it's what makes you decide to do something like this?
Yeah, I get an email from Kyle or a message in a Google chat that's like, hey, so we're going to do a fully animated 5-minute short film. And I say, no, you're not. That's crazy. And then a week later, I get an email like, so here's the details of the animation company. We've already started doing the storyboards. Here's the script. There's a Zoom at like 2 a.m. Sydney time if you're able to be on it. And I go, no, that's crazy. And then all of a sudden there's a fully animated short film. That's what it's like from my end.
Well, I kept you not in the dark on that one, but most of the time, I say most of the time, literally every time we do anything extra, it ends up turning into like a lot more work for Michael. And so in that one in particular, it was like, I mean, my background's in filmmaking and directing and post-production. And so it's like, I can run this, I can handle all this. Like Michael is stretched razor thin as well. And I was trying to keep you from having a heart attack, as I almost had a heart attack, putting it all together. But no, Kat, like to answer the spirit of the question, like why? 'Cause it gets me excited. Honestly, that's the biggest reason. Like when an idea comes up and I get really excited about it, it's a problem because then I have to do it. And I've kind of just been like that my whole life. But it's that excitement. I feel like if I get really excited about it, there's a good chance that other people might find it as exciting as I do. But honestly, at the same time, there's also a part of me that really doesn't care what other people think. I'm doing it because it makes me really, really happy. And, I've spent so much of my career working just as a writer. And the irony is, like, I never wanted to write. Like, I only ever wrote so I would have material to direct for short films and then features and things like that. And there's this whole other side of my life that, I've been in LA now for 20 years and I haven't directed a feature yet. The upcoming No One film is going to be actually my first feature, but it doesn't mean that there hasn't been a ton going on behind the scenes for all these years. And I think part of what makes Radiant Black and the MassiveVerse stuff continue to be so exciting is that there's no one to really say no. And if we can dream it and figure out the way, yeah, but I don't listen. If we can dream it and figure out a way to do it, it means we can. And that's like, after spending so many years like building worlds for other people and other companies, it's like really, really exciting and fulfilling to be able to not only build our own, but to also be able to go do the types of things that I love and have wanted to do, especially on the directing front. And it's just like, it's cool that like it does make me happy to know that like when people come up and ask me about that stuff at conventions and everything, like it does make me happy because it's nice to be able to do more than just write books, I guess is where I'm kind of going. Not to say anything wrong with writing books. I love that as well. But it's like when you can do more and you want to do more, but you can't, it can be a little frustrating.
Yeah, I think there's a part of it that's like we're coming into the 5th year of Radiant Black and we're working behind the scenes on Radiant Black 1 before it came out. Like we've been at it for 5 years and it's never boring, but you finish an issue and it's time to start the next issue. And we've done that 37 times or something at this point.
Yeah.
If we get an opportunity to be like, hey, what if instead for an hour today you got to make a card game? Wouldn't that be like fun and different and cool? yeah, it's fun and different and cool. Why would I'm not going to say no to that.
Also, we totally did that. The MassiveVerse card game is actually out in stores right now, and Michael absolutely did design the whole thing.
That's cool.
To
That's
work
awesome.
with the Pocket Paragon system. Do you have it? I've got one behind
It's
me.
normally next to my desk. I think I've got some cards here. Look at that.
There you go.
Beautiful.
Hold on, I'll grab mine.
Oh, I didn't know Kyle had his up there. That's special.
I have mine laying around
There we
somewhere.
go.
Not next to me, but
Nice.
that's awesome.
Thick,
Isn't
man.
that fun?
Yeah, it is.
Michael did all this like gorgeous box art
The
and
box,
everything.
yeah, the box art is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dan Mora actually did the character art for the box and the cards as well.
Yeah, I wanted to back that on Kickstarter, and I couldn't at the time. I'm gonna have to go hunt it down now.
Should be
I'm excited to
available.
play
Not to turn this into plugs are us, but
Yeah,
I
of course.
believe the Soulless
But it
guys
should be.
have got their stock and have it available on their website. So if you just search for
Nice.
MassiveVerse Fighting Card Game, I believe you should be able to start getting that in places now.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I love that you all are doing stuff like that, like the short film and like the podcast with no one and all
Yeah.
these different things. Because, like you said, it's immersive. It's something different. It's unique, and I marvel at the creativity that you all put behind this, and it's a big part of the reason why I personally got so into the MassiveVerse. And I know others have said it. It's what I was missing when Invincible, ended and that kind of thing. And, porting over from your work on Power Rangers and Ryan's work on Power Rangers and stuff like that. And it's just, I'm just a big fan. So thank you for everything you did.
Oh.
It's really awesome.
Well, thank you. No, thank you. I mean, that's the thing. We're in it like 24/7, and there's a lot of stress and pressure kind of all the time. And so it's hard sometimes to step back and, you're just hoping that the books are going to work and they're going to find an audience. And, especially in this market right now, it is incredibly challenging to be a comic book creator. And it's hard for everyone. It's hard for stores. It's hard for publishers. And so, there's also, we were talking off stream, just before this, but this is also an era where go into your comic store and really look how many books are above issue number 30 numbering wise, and how many of those books are independent books. There's not a lot. And that's both it's a challenge right now. It's the market is what it is, and it's hard to make a long running series. And yet at the same time, you retailers will say we need more long running titles in comics, but then so many things are just 6 issues and done these days. But then the flip side of that is, getting new readers to try a book in the 30s and getting retailers to invest in a book in its 30s is really, really tricky. And so that's where a lot of this comes from as well. And to hear that means a lot, because most of the time, day in, day out for us is like, oh, this was a problem we weren't expecting. Okay. How do we triage this now? Or how do we do this? And so to hear that how much you really enjoy the stuff like that will never get old. That means a lot. Makes it worth doing.
Now, speaking on the MassiveVerse side, the bigger MassiveVerse, obviously you guys do the specials every year, but do you feel like there's going to be more connective tissue between the titles as it goes on, or is it more just we're keeping in the specials and that's it?
What an incredible tee-up to a thing that we're actually about to do. Could not have planned that better.
I like it.
Yeah, in April of this year, we are doing our first official not a standalone thing, in regular numbered issues crossover. Rogue Sun is coming to Radiant Black. Radiant Black is coming to Rogue Sun.
Nice.
It'll be issues 33 of Radiant Black and 26 of Rogue Sun. And I mean, what can we say about it? We have designed these really, really carefully. If people are just reading Radiant Black and they don't read the Rogue Sun part, they're not going to miss anything. And if they're just reading Rogue Sun and they don't read the Radiant Black part, they're not going to miss anything. But if you read both of them, you get two different parts of similar stuff and you get the fuller picture.
Yeah, it's something that I really, really enjoy doing. Ryan and I have done, I don't want to say it's not the same thing, but Ryan and I did something kind of fun on Power Rangers during Shattered Grid, where you saw one side of a conversation from the Lord Draken side, and you saw the same conversation or a snippet of it from the Ranger Slayer side, and you have different, it works for both, but you also have different context depending on which issue you're reading. Scott Snyder and I did something during Court of Owls for Nightwing number 7, and Batman number 7, the same conversation in the cave from two different perspectives. So we're doing it's kind of in that ballpark, but it ends up like it's additive to each character's story arc. And also, as Michael said, if you only read one, great. If you read both, suddenly you'll understand different things based on events that recontextualizes in a like, oh wow, kind of sort of way. So the covers we're showing here. So this is Rogue Sun issue number 26 cover. So this is the second issue of our Rogue Sun rebuild era. Kicks off with Rogue Sun 25. And that's our A cover. And our A cover of Radiant Black 33 by Marcelo Costa. Sorry, I should mention the Rogue Sun cover is by the brilliant Stefano Simeone, who is our regular series cover artist. The cover for Radiant Black 33 is by Marcelo Costa. And this is Radiant Black and Clyde Bloodmoon. What a werewolf vampire is doing in Chicago is, I mean, that's anyone's guess. How you even stop a werewolf vampire is also anyone's guess. We'll figure it out together. But if you're seeing the side here, you've probably noticed there's two other images that I didn't click on. So this is actually a good time to mention that we're doing something fun with covers. And Radiant Black, so we do an A cover and a B cover. They're both open to order. And then we do a 1-in-25 C cover. And the A cover, so the B cover in particular, I'm actually going to show you that. I'm going to show you that one last because it's kind of a whole thing. But this is the A cover, open to order. The C cover, which is going to be, it's not only a 1-in-25, it's actually a 1-in-25 foil cover. So all of the C covers are going to be foil. And this one is by Rod Reese.
No, it's cool.
Yeah.
Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then on Rogue Sun, we're doing well, you know what? Sorry, the order of this, I could really go either way. On Rogue Sun, we're doing two covers for each issue. So there's an A cover, open to order, and then we're doing a 1-in-25 cover for Rogue Sun. It's not foil, it's standard, but they're all being drawn by Marcelo Costa, and they are all homage covers. So the homage cover to a famous comic book this month is something that probably will look familiar.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
Yeah, that's super cool.
Very cool.
Isn't that cool? And then as far as the B covers go for Radiant Black, what makes these special is that all 6 of these for issue 31 through 36 are actually one connecting image. They're all drawn by Ricardo Ribaldo, so it's a connecting set, and it features all the kind of main characters of this new arc for the Radiant Black rebuild here, on the wreckage of some, probably to some of you, if you've been reading the book, familiar looking remains.
There's a lot going on there. That is cool.
Isn't that fun?
That's a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Yeah.
So I saw a question in the chat about how the books are connected that I feel like I should just answer really quickly for anyone who like isn't fully across. Basically, the way it works is all the books in the Massiveverse are set in the same shared universe. There are little bits of connective tissue between all of them, like characters, companies, and so on that exist in the universe. But all you have to do to read them is read like volume 1 through the current volume. We do a crossover every year or so called a supermassive, but those are sort of additive but not necessary to the story. And you can read as many of the books as you want. So if you want to read them all, great. If you only want to read one, you won't miss anything by just reading one of them.
Yeah.
That kind of answers one of the questions I have, which was after the Catalyst War, if we were going to kind of slow things back down and get more grounded as we were like in the first arc of the series, and that kind of answers that, because obviously things are ramping up in a very different way. But I'm very excited about this crossover with Rogue Sun, because I enjoy both books, and seeing those two like interact more is something that I think a lot of fans have been looking forward to.
I'd
Yeah,
love to talk about that actually, yeah, because I think this is something Kyle and I have talked a lot about, which is how you like, the Catalyst, what we did was 2 simultaneous timelines, big alien invasion across Chicago, but the book can't be that all the time.
Right.
And so how we like dial the valve back a little while also still feeling like we have, that event happened and it had consequences that play into the stories that are coming up, I think is something that we put a lot of work into.
Yeah, we did. And I've actually got here, I'll pull this up as we're talking about it, just so people can see. It's that's the tricky thing. And it was something that I used to joke around about on Power Rangers. But it's very true, is that like once you go cosmic, it's really hard to go back to high school. And that's both for characters, but also from a narrative standpoint. Like you've now opened up the world to something beyond what's outside our windows. And so from a dramatic standpoint, as well as a momentum standpoint, it can be really tricky to figure out, like, can you put a genie back in a bottle? Should you put a genie back in the bottle? And the short answer, in my opinion, is that it's kind of neither. One of the things I've been very, very particular about with Radiant Black since issue 1 was the perspective. And I wanted to limit the perspective for the characters to keep it as such where the audience is not learning a whole lot beyond what the characters are learning. And so if you think about the first 3 years of Radiant Black, you don't know anything about Catalyst or the larger mythology or any of the stuff that it's even out there beyond little teases that you witness with the characters as they discover it. And so what I found is that my theory was, and I think it's right, it actually allowed for us to play with pacing in a way that, like, you could have your friendly neighborhood, superhero stuff and your personal life drama intermixed with the crazy cosmic, so long as, you're doing it in a way where the character doesn't know what's coming, and neither do the readers. As we come out of the Catalyst War here, though, like, I don't want to go, it's not about going massive again in the way, like, to try to one up what we did in the Catalyst War. It's about going different. That's not to say it's going to be small, but it is going to be, it's going to be coming out of the events of the Catalyst War and dealing with the aftermath, and not only the aftermath for the city, which, spoiler alert, there's still a big giant robot in the middle of State Street that they can't get rid of. So it's dealing with the actual aftermath of the city, but it's also dealing with like, okay, we've come out of this kind of world-changing event, even though it was localized to Chicago, it's still something that is like kind of rocked people to their core. And think about coming out of the pandemic and how much that changed us, not only as kind of a society, but as individuals, and how our feelings about certain things and opinions about certain things and even theories about certain things, hint, hint, might start to color how we move forward in the world. And so like everything from the different types of weapons and technology that have now proliferated thanks to the Catalyst kind of invasion, the 001 technology shift, creating these villains, the destroyed robot remains that are like seemingly everywhere. All of that actually amounts to what the next kind of direction is for the book. And so if, you know, the last year, basically the last big story, the Catalyst War, if that was going really cosmic, this is going really urban, I guess is the way to put it. Like, I want to explore the people and the structures, I don't even mean that from a building standpoint. I mean like the structures of like a city, of the relationships that someone like Marshall has in his life, friendships, professional, trying to be a hero, trying to not be the thing that he saw himself become in that other timeline.
Right.
And is the world going to let him? And is it even possible? And so we're doing some like really kind of wild things with like some new characters. Like this is actually probably a really great time before I show you those variant covers I pulled up there to show you, like, for example, we've got stuff like these guys.
Oh, these are cool designs.
Yeah, they
that's so cool.
And if you look carefully here, you'll notice a lot of those parts, that armor and stuff that they're wearing, it looks an awful lot like pieces of dead robots, doesn't it?
right.
Yeah, it's like their tech.
What exactly this group is, who these people are, what they believe, how it pertains to Radiant Black, and actually what they believe about Radiant Black, as well as the events of the Catalyst War, that's going to be something that becomes a very big problem in the book. And, you know, keep in mind, if you're just a regular person in the world, you have no idea what really was happening during the Catalyst War. But you might have some theories, and maybe those theories you talk about with other people, maybe across the internet, and maybe some new ideas and alliances and initiatives form from that. And so, you know, that actually probably is a really good way to tee up, and I can't say too much about him, but this guy. And this is one of the new villains in Radiant Black. We're calling him, his name is Jaeger. And it's, I'll tell you this, the name in typical Radiant Black fashion comes out of a very dumb place, because he may or may not use bombs, and someone may or may not refer to him as Jaeger Bomber. And that will make more sense. It'll make more sense with what he's doing. But Michael keeps telling me there's probably absolutely no connection between, you know, his mask and those symbols that these guys are wearing. But I don't know, Mike. I keep going back and forth, Michael. I just feel like it can't be by accident, can it? I mean, I guess
Fully by accident. We screwed up. We're gonna have to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's fair. And then we have people like this coming up who
That's cool.
we can't say much about her yet, other than this is an example of what we were talking about a few minutes ago, or what I was talking about a few minutes ago, with regards to like this proliferation of not only technology, but like this focus on, okay, if they're not going to save us, who is? And I got to save myself. there's going to be kind of a little bit of a movement that starts to happen with in the way that the pandemic was kind of like a supercharger for the QR code. The Catalyst War will be a supercharger for some of the 001 technology that's kind of open source and has been out there, but like not a ton of people have figured out how to do anything with it, much less what to do with it. And so we're going to start seeing more operators and individuals popping up with kind of their own take on things and their own gear. And that gear all charges by being near the little miniature black holes, the radiance. So what kind of dynamic that creates is also something that will be at the forefront here.
Very cool. These character designs are neat. I mean, always the character designs in Radiant Black and in Rogue Sun have always been really, really cool.
Yeah, we're really fortunate to have, honestly, like two just ridiculously good designers who are the co-creators on both Radiant Black and Rogue Sun. I mean, Marcelo's interiors are amazing. His colors are exceptional, but his design work is just, it's next level. And Abel, same thing. Like Abel, an amazing draftsman. His interiors, his storytelling are killer. I love his style. But I don't know, Michael, if he's missed a design yet. I mean, it's like usually round one.
I think there's been one character in 2.5 years that we've done like a second pass on because it just wasn't quite what we were feeling. Everyone else,
Totally.
he basically like doesn't. And I mean that, you know, that most recent character that Kyle showed you with the wings, that was not us going like, hey, Marcelo, we need a character with wings.
Right.
Marcelo was like, hey, Kyle, here's something I've designed. Can we use this?
Right.
Nice.
Right.
Very cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
And then Marcelo oh, sorry, go ahead, Kat.
Oh no, just the name changes acts. What's a good jumping on point? It's the next issue, right? That's the new jumping on point.
Yeah. So
yeah,
if someone goes to radiant.black/catch up, all one word, they can read a thing we put together called The Story So Far, which summarizes everything up before issue 31. Obviously you can also go and get everything else in trade, or we've got the first 2 volumes in hardcover, but this is sort of like, you know, it's free, it's online, you can read that catch-up issue. And then issue 31 is out towards the end of February. There we go, look at that.
Yeah. So we this is actually through the Black Market newsletter as well, which is for free. We've got actually like a pretty cool little sale going on right now where we're actually selling all 6 volumes of the book, or any of them, whichever you want, for 15% off on all the books. And if you're not a subscriber to Black Market, our Black Market newsletter, it means when you subscribe, you actually get a one-time 10% off code like emailed to you. So they're stackable as well. So you could basically buy all 6 volumes for 25% off right now if you wanted. Or again, you could just buy volume 1 or volume 2 or volume 3, whatever. We're really just trying to make everything as crazy accessible as possible. And so what is available to read for free right here, as Michael just said, is this 16-page recap comic that we put together that Michael actually wrote. And I did a little, but you did most of this, and pulled all the art from, to basically go through 6 volumes.
Well. That was fun.
And yes, you did letter it. Yes.
Yeah.
But this goes through the first 6 volumes of Radiant Black in a really efficient way that like hits all the beats, what you need to know without spoiling like the journey for all of it. And then at the end here, you know, the 6 volumes, information on issue 31, which is the start of the next arc, and the great, you know, our big jumping on point, the kickoff of Rebuild. We've also got at the end here it didn't do it. Anyway, yeah. So that is that.
Cool. I think we are gonna start wrapping up soon, but do you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about? And also Mike, Brant, any other questions you guys had?
I got a couple of like fun questions. Obviously, it doesn't have anything to do with Radiant Black, but I kind of just want to get kind of like a little bit of history, like you guys, how you guys got into comics. So like, what was do you have a favorite comic book character when you were a kid? And, you know, who was that character?
Well, mine's over my shoulder. So
So
you talked about that earlier.
yeah. Nightwing was mine for sure.
I was probably like I came into comics through those 90s Marvel animated series, the X-Men and the Spider-Man and the
Spider-Man.
I might be the only person who remembers that there was also an Iron Man one, but
oh no, I remember that. So,
I remember.
So I like, you know, saw those, and then I think probably had seen an X-Men movie before I read an X-Men comic, and came in through those very early volumes of Ultimate X-Men, because it was like, oh, it's a cool new X-Men that like you don't have to have read anything to really get into. So I'm probably an X-Men guy. I don't read a ton of X-Men these days, but those were probably my guys. I have truly, if you were to like ask me questions about the X-Men, there's stuff lodged up here that I think like will never go away.
Right.
Similar to Michael, like my gateway was really the cartoons. Like I was, I was a really, really big Ninja Turtles fan. Like from the time I was like 2 or 3. I was born in 85. So like the cartoon in 87, 88 just like blew my mind, and I just loved it. And then I from there found I mean, the first movie, just to this day, is one of my top 4 favorite movies. I've seen it a million times, can quote every line.
I've been with him when he does that.
Yeah. And then X-Men the Animated Series was a really big gateway into the comic books as well. And that and Pizza Hut. And then Batman the Animated Series, gateway into the Batman comics, and Spider-Man the Animated Series. I was already loved Spider-Man before that, but then that show really kind of like exploded it for me. Yeah.
I think that's a lot of ours, you know, because I mean, I'm 49. Brant's around the same age as I am, and I think we've all watched those shows, and they're a huge influence in us enjoying comics so much. And then I got one real quick one. It's like, do you guys still collect comics today? I know you guys are so busy writing and creating, but do you collect and still read?
I don't collect anymore, but I do read. I'm very behind on anything current. I don't read monthlies that often. I tend to read trades if I'm picking something up. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Right now, I'm really behind.
I understand that.
I'm just trying. I joke about trying to not have a heart attack, but there's actually some truth there. I'm just trying to like, we're trying to survive and get through this stuff. But I have this like huge stack of stuff that I can't wait to dive into. So, and I tend to buy a lot of like I get really excited about like all those like the artist edition versions of things. Like I picked up the David Mazzucchelli artist edition of Year One that just came out with all those vellum overlays and everything. I've got a little collection of those artist editions. So I did take a night and like just went through that page by page and just fell in love with it all over again.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm quite similar. Like, I think that it is part of my job to keep a finger on like what's happening in comics and what's coming out and what other people are doing and stuff like that. So like I try to get to the comic shop at least every couple of weeks, if not every week. I'm not a collector really. Like I keep the stuff that I've got, but I'm not out hunting for rare variants or anything like that.
Sure.
But yeah, you know, like it's funny because all the stuff, like, I don't need to tell you guys that Ram V's The New Gods is great, right? Like, it's great. We all knew it was going to be great, and it turns out it's great. The Power Fantasy is like, oh yeah, Kieran Gillen's new book is great. Surprise.
Yeah.
All the stuff that people think is great is great. It turns out they're all correct about it.
Totally. So we'll get out of your guys' hair here. I know
Yeah.
there's some people that want to see this week's new picks that you guys are gonna get it to. If I can just hit one more thing super quick, I'll just show like a
Please.
couple last pieces of early art, and then we'll
Oh yeah.
bid adieu here. So Radiant Black, as I said, Radiant Black 31 kicks off our rebuild era for Radiant Black. Rogue Sun 25 kicks off the rebuild era for Rogue Sun. And this is the debut of Ari, Dylan's half sister,
Yeah.
as the new Rogue Sun. She's
awesome.
a second Rogue Sun. To this point, there's only been one Sunstone that has gone back generations. And this is a new one. So how is that possible? Where does this come from? And why now is kind of like the central question of it all. For those who've never heard of Rogue Sun or checked it out, I love this book. I describe it as it's like a supernatural Batman Beyond with like a shitty dead dad who haunts the suit. And it's like if Flash Thompson got superpowers instead of Peter Parker. So like literally the first time
That's
you meet
great,
Dylan,
man.
he's like shoving a kid in a locker. He's a bully. And then he finds out that his estranged father who like walked out on him and his mom when Dylan was like 2, that dude who he's never known actually is a superhero. Well, he's now dead. And he's left the powers to Dylan. But every time Dylan transforms into Rogue Sun, the ghost of his dead father is there, like literally over his shoulder. And so now he's got to like develop a relationship with this man he's hated in order to keep New Orleans from being invaded by, these supernatural forces from this great kind of, the big bad named Morningstar. And the book is really at its core, like it's this story about really being the child of divorce. And it's very personal for Ryan, and it's all through the superhero lens, of course. But we're entering this era now where it's like the person who was supposed to be Rogue Sun, Ari, has now gotten the powers, and the relationship between her and her half brother is again it's our way of like, it's looking at that central kind of conceit of the series through a new version of that conceit of the family dynamic and that kind of modern family through superheroes. And also it means that there's a really interesting kind of dynamic between the two of them that may make sense why we picked this as the homage cover.
Yeah.
I like that.
Nice.
Right.
The Batman and Robin. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the last things I want to show super quick. So this one is going to be coming live in the next day or two for Radiant Black 34. It's a new cover.
Nice.
This is the first time we're showing this. So you get a really early look here for you. And that's some of those guys that we showed before.
And that character designs, yeah, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And then issue 33, our 1 in 25 foil cover. The thing with the foil covers is we're trying to bring like some really cool names and creators to do these 1 in 25 foils. So we've got Rose Besh is doing one right now. We've got Michael Cho who's lined up to do one. Matt Taylor just sent in the sickest layout I've ever seen.
So cool.
Oh, and then there's this little guy. There's this guy who, I don't know, I think he's got a future named Jock.
Oh, nice.
Very nice.
That guy's going places, I reckon.
Right.
Just might, yeah.
And then the last thing I want to just plug or mention is that we are going to be bringing out the second volume of Inferno Girl Red later this year. The book's done. We're having it printed overseas. We're in the process of that right now. We'll have updates for that and timeline for when it'll be in the direct market as serialized, floppies before then ultimately coming out as a graphic novel version. We'll have updates on that very soon. We'll also have updates on the Radiant Black audiobook. I'm literally getting on a session with Will Friedel and Ryder Strong tomorrow morning for some things. But we'll have updates on that in the future. But again, it's a really big thing with like Troy Baker's voicing stuff with us and Yatko from Jujutsu Kaisen. It's just like, it's going to be a lot of fun. The last thing I'll leave on is something no one's seen before. Michael doesn't even know I'm putting this up. Speaking of Inferno Girl Red Book 2.
This is what it's like all the time.
Hard,
this is what my life is like.
That's so cool.
Forgiveness instead of permission, right?
There you go.
Very nice.
Awesome.
looks
So
awesome.
we will get out of your hair. I just want to say, if you, I've seen there's a lot of questions in the chat. Just tweet at me. Like I'll answer questions if you just tweet at me. So like, if there's stuff you want to know, get in my tweets, and I will happily say whatever we haven't said here.
I love it. Thank you guys so much for coming on
Thank
and
you.
spending
Thanks for having
time.
me.
Thank you
And
for having us.
yeah,
Yeah.
of course. And if you ever guys want to be on
Our
again and promote, we're here.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right. Thanks. Take care, everybody.
Bye, guys. Have
Bye.
a good night.
All right, now Brant's going to rearrange us, and
Yeah.
wasn't that so fun, guys? That was amazing. So, of course, we're going to skip most of the news besides Daredevil and the Dan Slott news. Everything else will be next week, and we'll fly through the comics, which I think was a pretty small week anyways. So, I think let's save the news for last, and let's go to the comics. And then kind of the one thing I want to talk about before we get into comics, though, is I do have a campaign I've been working hard on all day. More than all day. All day it's been live. We have our new Little Mermaid book that's out, and it's part of our Ever Afterverse. If you want to know what happens after the Little Mermaid story, this is a sequel story. It's how about if the Little Mermaid was not satisfied with just getting legs, and she meets with another pirate who is actually a mermaid and a human. So how do you deal with that? And what's cool about this book is you have Terry Morris cover and the original art sold in 5 minutes. But what also is cool is that there's a safe and not safe for work version. So if you're not into the nudity stuff, then you get the safe for work version. But if you love some spicy, you can get the spicy version. And guess what? If you want to get both, you can. And what's really cool about this is that, took inspiration from the Red Band stuff, where we always complain that Red Band didn't have enough. We're just like,
Yeah.
oh, there's just like a little gore and that's it. So
Yeah.
what we really wanted to do is that the spicy version has 2 extra pages that is not in the safe version. And you actually get, more than just a little splash of blood for the violence, and more than just like one little thing of nudity. Like we actually do have a whole,
You
sex
up
scene
the
for
ante a little
spicy.
bit there. You give people what they pay for, right? That's what it's about.
Exactly. And
That's
you can
what it
compare the 2 titles. So we're really, really proud of this. And we'll say we're really, really close for this being our best day one. Already backer wise, it's our best, but we're like a little less than $1,000 for being our best day one ever, which is kind of crazy to say for the campaigns we've had in the past. So hopefully you guys could go check it out.
Congratulations, Kat.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Very
I'm
good.
happy about it. So we are now going to dive into some comic books, and it's funny because this week I didn't have like a ton, but tomorrow I feel like there's a lot coming out.
I feel like there's a lot up to a point, and then it just like cut off for me. Like I'm like, oh, I'm getting this, I'm getting this, I'm getting this, and then it stopped. Almost like this week too. But I think there is a little bit more this week.
I think I'm
all
at
right.
like 15 this
So
week.
let's kick it off here. We'll go kind of quick. We'll go G.I. Joe. Brant and I, of course, read this one. So what'd you think of this week's G.I. Joe issue, Brant?
No, I thought it was good. I like that Clutch was kind of, behind enemy lines as it was, and, kind of seeing how Cobra's operating and all that stuff, and the tension between the different G.I. Joe members and all that stuff building as well. And it feels, now we're starting to get somewhere with this book. So really good issue.
And you got introduced to the twins at the end.
Yeah.
Right? Which was cool. And then Cobra Commander is, I don't know, man. I think he's different in this. I don't think he's like some sniveling little weasel. I think
No, not at all.
He's much more violent, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This might be the most competent version of Cobra Commander we've ever got.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a solid book. Yeah, a solid book for sure. All right. So then we're gonna talk about probably another big book this week. Green Lantern Fractured Spectrum issue 1. I thought this book was really good story. I think this was a good jumping on point for a lot of readers that maybe have not kept up with Green Lantern. It gives you an understanding of what's happening. And basically, this is just a new status quo. I mean, it's like new old status quo, right? We get the battery back, Oa's back, the core is back, and yes, we also have Sorrow, who is back as well. And the only thing that I disliked about this, or it was a little bit different or jarring for me in a way, was that art. Yeah, it was definitely different. It was like a anime type of manga style of art that they were going for. Just a lot different from what we're used to from like the regular Green Lantern series.
Yeah, no, I like the story. I think it was a setup for something bigger, but the art really took me out of that one.
I don't think it took me out of it, but I did enjoy the story quite a bit. I like where it's headed.
No, yeah, and there, read Green Lantern. It looks like there's a lot ahead, and World War mentions it. I love it. Jeremy Adams, so good. We love Jeremy Adams here. Someone does mention, Braden, could I drop the link to the Kickstarter pre-launch, be part of the comic segment you guys check out? We don't really cover Kickstarters very often here, but I do a top 10 Kickstarters on my channel. I'm always looking at Kickstarters there, and we could always like share the link if you want, but to do the focus segments, we normally just do it for the books that we're working on currently. But, we wish you the best of luck with the Kickstarter. And again, I'm always on the search for Kickstarters for my top 10. And I look at every campaign that's out. So just know that that's all Kickstarters are already on my radar.
All right. So now let's go ahead and move on to one of the most highly anticipated books of the week. And that was Ultimate Wolverine, issue 1. This book was really pretty good in my eyes. I enjoyed it, just seeing Wolverine go into his mission, getting introduced to the different mutants that maybe you have not seen in the Ultimate Universe as well, going through the flashbacks of Wolverine also, about him memorizing certain situations, like how he was created and whatnot. I enjoyed the book. I'm looking forward to seeing the development of this character. Like if he snaps out of it, does he become a good guy? Those different types of elements. So I found myself intrigued. It was probably one of the more action-packed issues in the Ultimate Universe in a while, besides maybe that one Ultimates book where you wind up seeing the team fight the Hulk there. But besides that, it was pretty action packed, and Wolverine didn't have to say a word, so I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was definitely more actiony than story driven, but I think it gave me enough to want to get the next issue. And I do like this vibe more than, let's say, an Ultimate X-Men. I'm curious where it goes. Like I like the characters that show up. I thought killing Nightcrawler, I guess potentially
that was
is
rough,
interesting,
though, wasn't it? I was like,
yeah,
oh, look who's in there, and I'm like, oh, I guess he's not in here anymore. Oh, and she's dead too. So I'm like, well, there go those guys.
And the Rasputins, we'll see where they end up. But I like I said, I think it has potential, but it didn't blow my mind just yet. Honestly, because of the art too. I thought the art was not weak, but it just wasn't what I expected. It's not like in your face. It's a little lighter on the pencils, I would say.
You think it was more like a little bit more two-dimensional for you? Maybe not just so.
I think it's just the coloring. I think the coloring was just so weird. Like I think this is a great example right here. It's like more chalky than like kind of detailed, but not bad art. It just wasn't what I expected. It just feels very like water pastel, honestly.
I mean, I know a lot of the stuff was flashback stuff too, so maybe there was a point to that too. And it was very like dark because everything was in the snow and stuff like that. I don't know, So yeah, you do make a point about the coloring there. So, but I'll be curious to see where it goes.
I like even though it was very action heavy, you mentioned that Wolverine never said a word. There was a lot said without saying anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I thought the art really did a good job at conveying that. So, but I liked it.
Cool. All right. So then let's just dive into our number 5 then. So, Brant, I'll start with you. What was your number 5?
Mine was G.I. Joe. So we already talked about it.
Oh, look at that. It's like I read your mind when I talked about that book first. What about you, Kat? What was your number 5?
Mine was Laura Kinney. I like this issue a bit more than the last because I honestly didn't expect to like Elektra and Laura's dynamic so much, but they kind of sold the issue for me. I was just like, oh, I didn't know I needed this, but cool. And I just felt like I had more of a direction. I just like them hanging out with each other. And I thought the art was pretty solid.
I like this one better than issue 1 as well, which would make me continue the series because I was like, if I don't like this issue, I'm not gonna read it anymore. And so I did enjoy them. My only issue with it was I just felt like Laura was just like almost overly angry all the time, and I felt like Elektra like had to constantly hold her back. And I feel like Laura, I don't know, shouldn't always be like that at this point. That's just my thought
She's
behind
grown
it.
past that.
Yeah, exactly. Because in previous comics, as of late, we haven't seen her like that, you know. So that was kind of a little bit off for me. And then the other thing was, it's just like they're warning Luke Cage about this possible mutant that's going to blow up the city, and he's just like, my guy's got it under control. You guys show up, you're going to cause more problems there. Just go home. And I would just kind of like, I would think that Luke would kind of understand, I don't know, their thought process behind things before just kind of like blowing them off. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if you guys felt that way.
Yeah, that's how he was acting before, like Blood Hunt and stuff. But after that, it seems like he's had a change of heart in that regard. And so this felt like, oh, we're going back to that version of Luke Cage before this, where he had to play by the book and all this stuff. So yeah,
Right.
it was a little dated in that respect. And I do agree with both of you. I think this issue was better, but I also had the same problems with Laura in the way that she was handling everything. But at the same time, I did like her dynamic with Elektra. So it was kind of a mixed bag. I'm on board for it or with it for now, but yeah, it's going to be like, you know, I'll keep my eye very closely on each issue, I guess.
I also like the artwork in this book too. I think they look great with and action scenes look great too.
Yeah.
All right. And then my number 5, excuse me, I'm sorry I'm coughing so much. I think I'm getting sick again.
Oh,
but
no. Only a week after.
I know. Well, my son got sick again, so now it's like, hey, let's go around the table again, you know.
Right.
So my number 5 was Minor Arcana. I like this issue a lot because even though it stepped away from the main character, I did like learning, which I think is the grandfather in this one, because he's wearing that trench coat that she wears. And so I think you're kind of learning about his past life.
I wasn't sure if it was the grandpa or like the father. That's the one.
I think it was the grandfather because she mentions like how close she was with him when she was younger, and he passed away when she was real young. So I think this was the grandfather when he was like super young, and her mom was really young. So just learning about his life, everyday life, how he just wanted something more and he was unhappy. And then something happens that really changes his life, but in a negative way. And I'm like, dude, where are we going with this now? Like, this is just like opens up a whole new can of worms. And even though it's like, I had questions before and I even have more questions now, I'm on board for this journey of this, you know, of this series. So I enjoyed it.
No, I agree. I like this book a lot. And I didn't know how to feel that it was going like not in the main series. But then I was like, oh, I really like this as a standalone. And I'm sure it'll connect somehow. Because again, it probably is her grandfather. So yeah, Jeff Lemire for me personally can do no wrong. I really like everything he writes.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So now we will move on and we'll talk about, oh wow, was I the only one that Red wrote?
Oh yeah, you're the only one picked it up. Yeah.
Wow. I'm surprised Brant didn't even give it a try.
I didn't have time to read that one. That was like, if I get time, I'll read that one. But yeah,
I'm not going to go too much into it. I thought it was a fine story. It was nothing great. It wasn't anything spectacular. Obviously, it takes place in the Savage Land. It has to take place like in time of like X-Men issue 200. I think it was like 247, right? And she's stuck in this world, and obviously she misses her people, and she comes across Magneto, and she has to save I guess Kazar, I think that's how you say his name, from the primates. And it was fine. It had emotional things in the beginning. I'll check out issue 2. It wasn't like it was like the best comic I've ever read, but I had an enjoyable time with it. So when you get around to it, just go ahead and read it. I think.
Yeah.
All right, and then we'll talk about Nightwing 122. So are you done with Nightwing,
I
Kat?
dropped it. There are so many books out that this just is there for me. It's not bad, but it's not great. So unless I hear like a new arc or something, I'm kind of done for now. That and Green Arrow, I felt the same way where I'm like, it's not offensive, but it's not, not something I need to spend time on right now.
Green Arrow, I think, finally picked up at the end of that last issue to where I'm like, okay, I'm going to check it out longer. Nightwing, on the other hand, I'm still going to read it. It's interesting because they introduced a new character in here that has to deal with who's in charge of what's the Spherical Solutions. I think that's who she is, right, Brent?
Yeah, she was whatever that company that the one lady is contracting to do all the security, all the police.
Yeah.
So yeah, and she was like from this. She has this connection to Dick when he was younger, or some case he was on with Batman and the Circus of Sin or Sin, whatever it was called, and she was somebody that he tangled with and got away, and now she's come back. So that was interesting, at least. But at the same time, like all the other stuff, I totally get why you would drop it, Kat. I'm gonna hang on for now, but it's like on the bubble for me. I really like the art. I think the art's really nice in this book, but this story is dragging out a little bit for me. So we'll see how it goes. So
yeah, and he's trying to prove his case to the police, and the police like, or even his own sister like doesn't even believe him. It's like, what evidence do you have that this girl is in charge and she's doing all these bad things? And he's like, oh, I don't know, but this is what I can tell you. So it's kind of weird that way, but it's all right. I mean, I find it interesting. I'm curious to see where they're going to go with this series. Like, again, 5 issues from now, what's going to be there that's going to make me continue to read it,
Right. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Feral issue 9. This is a book now that all 3 of us read. This book here was probably one of my favorite issues since the series is launched, because you finally got to see, for the first time ever, from between Stray Dogs and Feral, you see a human's face. You've never seen a human's face.
But
well,
in the beginning, I guess she wasn't dead. But by the end, she was dead.
And it was interesting, the type of like, they gave you the definition at the end of what these cats were suffering from. Not just the rabies, but it was something else. Same with the woman. Right. It's at the last page there.
Something that transfers to humans through feces. Yeah.
Correct. Yes. And being that she's a cat hoarder, it totally made sense why she had the disease that she did. But the suspense that this comic builds, and all these cats killing each other, and it was like the zombie herd attacking, the humans, like in Walking Dead, and you're just like, oh my God, it's like the loss of life. And then they're trying to escape at the end, and then there's like the dead bodies in the way from blocking the door. I was just like, dude, that's crazy, man. It's such a good book.
Yeah, and like the cult worship element of it too, where the cats in the house are just like, the lady keeps us, And it's just like, man, this is wicked.
I just think that Tony Fleeks does such a good job at horror. Like, he just, every issue feels like a different horror movie, because I think, in comics, sometimes things can get a little boring if it's been going on for a long time. And you had Stray Dogs, you had this on issue 9 already. You're like, oh, I've seen it. But I honestly feel like every issue is a new horror movie. It feels like a sequel. It's constantly fresh, from the visuals to the in that regard.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's like, once they got to the house, it became this completely different little thing. And now they're, wherever they go next is going to be this other little thing. And it's cool how he does keep it fresh that way. So, yeah, but this was a really good issue.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So now we'll move on to number 4. And Kat, what was your number 4 this week?
Mine was, I think, Feral. Let me double check, but it was Feral. So we talked about it.
Oh, see, so it's like reading minds, man. What about you, Brant?
Yeah.
Mine was also Feral.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah.
Mine was not Feral. Sorry, guys. Mine was Green Lantern, Fractured Spectrum. So we talked about it. Even though the art wasn't my favorite, I did really enjoy the story. All right. So now we're going to talk about, this was in our comments too, about what we think about Amazing Spider-Man. So we're going to talk about Amazing Spider-Man, the 65-point deaths issue.
I think what's so interesting about this issue is that I liked hearing from Agent Coulson more than I liked hearing from Peter Parker. Like I enjoyed this issue because it was just like outside of it all and felt different. And I'm not saying I love the issue, but I like this issue a lot more than the last issue because of it. I'm like, oh, this feels a little different. This feels like it feels connected to something, and it has a little of emotion. Yeah, I like Coulson here.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I didn't love the way Peter was drawn. He just didn't look like himself all the time to me. But aside from that, yeah, I liked everything like Coulson was saying, and the emotion that came through that conversation was just, I don't know, and the way he connected to him and reliving his past and Peter's past, just, all that stuff. It was a lot more interesting than, oh, I got to beat this sibling this week, and so on and so forth. So. Yeah,
I'm right there with you guys. I mean, there's not much to add to it. It's just really learning about Coulson at the end of the day, kind of like who he is now, and what he's about, and obviously depressed Peter Parker. Now, I guess tomorrow we're gonna get a new issue, so maybe he'll get out of that funk, So we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, Spider-Man is kind of just Spider-Man right now. There's nothing great or fantastic or amazing about it, so we'll see where it goes from here. All right, let's see, where are we at now? We're at let's talk about The Moon is Following Us, issue 5. So I thought this was like the penultimate issue, and then people were telling me, no, this is a 10-issue maxi series. I'm like,
after that,
shit, I didn't know that. I was like,
this was the end of the first
was
arc.
even longer.
Yeah.
After I heard it was 10 issues, I did decide I'm going to drop it after this because I don't hate it. It's a fine book, but it's so not written for me. I don't like this genre. I like the characters enough, but I don't think they move that much. So yeah, fine book, but I don't need to read up to 10 issues.
I get that from you. I totally get that. I actually really like this issue because of the twist, and obviously the one helping them the whole time and all that stuff. So I thought that was really interesting. That turned, pun intended, but that turned the page for me a little bit because I was on the fence with it up until that, and when that came about, I was like, oh, that's actually more interesting to me. So now I'm more excited about the next half of the story. So I like this issue.
So I like the twist at the end. I thought that was kind of cool. The only problem now that I've had with this series is that I just would like it to take a break, to slow down, and to get to know the characters, the emotions, on who they are, like who Samantha and Duncan are, and who Penny are. Yeah. Like we got that a little bit. I think it was like in the second issue, kind of like just to let you know what the story is about. But it's kind of like, why should I really care about these characters and saving their daughter when I don't know anything about them? It's always a mile a minute. We're always in it. We're always trying to save the day. And that's fine, but it needs to slow it down a little bit just to make me like the characters more, like previous series that Daniel Warren Johnson has done. I'm not saying that he's not going to do that, going forward, but I'm waiting for that to happen.
Yeah, I really wonder if that's what we're going to get now, because they're having their life force strained and they're weaker now, and now they're going to feel like they're lost. I wonder if we are going to kind of go back and learn a little bit more about them. We'll see. It could, maybe we won't, and it'll just keep going at a breakneck pace.
Yeah, exactly.
Next issue will be telling. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. And then next book we're talking about is where are we? Titans, issue 19. So for me, when it came to Titans, this was my favorite issue since
Me too.
the new creative
Really?
team has come on board. Yeah.
Okay.
I did not like, I didn't say I didn't like it, but I didn't like the Clock King thing. I didn't like
Yeah.
so much the last issue, but this one I liked. I thought the artwork was different. I don't know. I think I liked it a little bit better. And
It's Serga Acuna who did the artwork. It is a different
okay.
artist. Yeah.
And then I did like I like Killer Frost. I liked how she's the villain and she's very paranoid about people always going after her and whatnot. I thought that was kind of cool. And the interesting aspect is I feel like we've seen this before, but again, the Justice League Unlimited not taking the Titans seriously, almost treating them like their kids or like a second, like a B team or something like that. Not uncommon because the Teen Titans were Teen Titans and they were like little sidekicks, the next Justice League or whatever it was. But I don't know, man. I liked it. I thought it was better. It's still not my favorite series right now, but it was a step in the right direction for me.
I like this issue a lot because I felt like the art was really good. I liked where they were going with Raven. I agree with the Killer Frost stuff. I thought that was super intriguing. And I like that it felt connected to other things. Like it felt connected to what's going on with the Watchtower. Them used to being the Justice League and not really being that anymore. I like Donna questioning, the whole leadership aspect. I thought it was a really solid issue.
So I think I might be dropping it.
Oh, it's so funny. Well, if you didn't like this issue, then it's not for you.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I like those elements of it. I like that it feels connected to everything, but it feels like I've read a lot of this before. Just like you kind of alluded
definitely
to,
understand
that. They're fighting Deathstroke.
Right.
Killer Frost is a villain again. They're not being trusted by the Justice League. It's the same stuff, and it's just told in a different way. But I don't know. It's just not what I want from the series. I love the characters. I want to love the book, but I don't know. So far, I just have not. And I was hoping this issue I would like better because I really do like Killer Frost, and I just didn't. So
totally get it. Totally get it. This issue just made me hold on to it just a little bit longer just to see if it's going to continue to get better or not. So
yeah.
All right, cool. So now with that being said, so we're going to move on to our number 3. Bram, what was your number 3 this week?
Mine actually was The Moon is Following Us.
Okay, cool. What about you, Kat?
Mine was Titans.
And then mine was actually Ultimate Wolverine. All right, so we talked about all those. So now we're going to move on to shit. I didn't read any of these, didn't I? Oh no, I did read this one. I guess you didn't put it in there. Oh no. Yeah, I'm confused.
You and Kat.
Yeah, me and Kat read that one. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a
So let's talk about Exceptional X-Men issue 5. I didn't read this one, but you guys did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say out of all the issues, this was the weaker issue of Exceptional X-Men, but it's Exceptional X-Men and I love this book. So I thought it was really interesting to look into Kitty's past with the death side of things with Krakoa. I like the connection of the girl Toa, who is just like her Tao, who is really having this ethical question of, do I have to be like this? Is this what mutants mean? Do I have to kill people? I don't want to kill people. And I like seeing her family dynamic. Like it seems like, some of her family is human, and she's mutant. They don't really seem to have a problem with it. So yeah, I liked it as a character driven issue, but I do think that this one was a little slower, and I think they could have done a little bit more with Kitty's past than they did in this issue. But I loved it. Like I love the moments with Kitty and Emma. I think it's going to bring a lot of interesting conflict as the issue goes on.
the moments with Kitty and Emma, I think for me were the best. I did like this issue. It was my number 6. I agree with you. I think it was a little bit slower, and just the abruptness of the reactions of some of the characters was a little off for me. But other than that, it's growing on me. I think this book, from issue to issue, I think it's getting a little bit stronger, even with the slower issue. We're getting to know these characters a little bit more, and they are interesting characters. They have a different dynamic, than we've seen before, because they're, I don't know, they're younger, they have a fresher voice and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
And they're not in the school. Like, they're young mutants that are in the real world. I think that's interesting. And the art, man, the art is so good for this book. Like, where you get to see like Kitty killing all those people and it's like a splash page. It's just, I mean, especially for a talking head issue, like it's really does interesting stuff with the visuals.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. All right. And then question all along the Watchtower issue 3. So what did you guys think of this one?
I think it's a really cool mystery. We get to see Batwoman and the Question team up. In the end, you get to see like Cyborg Superman show up. I think it's a really fun series that ties into the bigger DC universe, and it's cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's not where I originally thought it was headed. Obviously, I still think those things are planted in there just like little Easter eggs or whatever, little teases, red herrings, whatever you want to call them. But yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Cyborg Superman in a little bit, so it kind of makes sense with all the tech going haywire on the Watchtower that would be the cause of it. So yeah, I like the mystery of it. And again, all these DC books, that's the one thing I do like, that they all feel interconnected. They all feel like they're, dealing with the same issues. There's repercussions felt through every single one of them. So I really do like that connectivity.
That's cool. Yeah, definitely. That's a plus in the DC universe right now. I think I'll definitely agree with you there. And that's why I feel like Marvel is lacking these days. They just don't many stories connect,
Right.
All right. So now let's go to a book that I recommended to you guys. And I wasn't even going to buy this. This is You Won't Feel a Thing, issue 1. This one is done by Distillery, and I don't usually buy Distillery books. But my comic book shop guy said, Mike, you might like this one. It's done by Jock and it's Snyder, and it's a good mystery. It's about a former FBI agent or homicidal agent who is suffering from dementia. And you kind of learn about this guy's life and what he's going through and what he's been through and his relationships in the past with this woman. And you get to see him go do these like constant exercises. And it was just really intriguing going into this guy's life. And you found out what happened with this woman that he was going to marry, or he was going to ask to marry. And you find out that she got murdered, and it was by this supposed serial killer, I think by the name of the Chatterman. And it's just really interesting getting into this character's head, and then being that this guy suffers from dementia, like what really is real, I'm guessing, and what's not real. And does this guy make up this Chatterman? Because supposedly this character, this serial killer, no one's seen him. And he's the one that is the only one that supposedly has seen him. So has he seen this guy in his brain? And like, maybe he's the killer? And you know what I'm saying? I don't know. But this was a very interesting book, and I really, really enjoyed it.
I wanted to like it more. I like the concept, but maybe it's just like I read it after I read everything else, like all my comics. And maybe this is more of a book you have to read for the first one in your haul.
It really is.
Because I was like, felt tired reading it. I was just like, oh, it's very Scott Snyder, where it's very like, there's a lot you have to comb through to kind of get to the meat of it. And especially those first couple of pages, I couldn't get into it because of it. Maybe I'll give it another shot when issue 2 comes out. But for me, it just wasn't enough to pull me in.
I totally get that. I mean, I know how I see the comment with Mark
Yeah, I
Spears in
saw
there.
it.
I was like, I know how Snyder's writing is. So, and I know that this was a more lengthier book. So I was like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to get in car line, wait 45 minutes to pick up my daughter, and make this the first book that I read. There's nobody around me. No one can interrupt me. And that's how I got immersed into this story. And when you can put yourself in that space, that's when you can enjoy this comic book. And that's how I really got into it that way. So can totally get where you're coming from here, especially if you've read a whole bunch of comics. I totally get it, man. So yeah.
Also, I do agree with Fish Face Pete, who said I'd buy more of their books if they would do comic size. I love the larger format for reading, but too cheap to buy a box. That's literally, I've read this digitally for that reason. I will not.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll ever buy a book from them physically because I do not. Even reading wise, I hate reading books like that. They're too big. Not my style. So if I read a distillery book, is always gonna be digitally.
Yeah, it is. It's big. I'm reading it in my car, and I'm like, hey, man. I mean, it looks good. You don't get me wrong, right? Like, that artwork is there. You know, the format of the comic, like the quality is really good. But again, it's so big, and it's just so inconvenient to keep them so.
I bought a couple of them at the very beginning when they first came out, and they're sitting on a table in my closet because I literally have nowhere else to put them. So,
Parker Luck said, did Brant or Mike pick up the DC versus Marvel omnibus? I didn't do the other one. I didn't know the other one came out, the Amalgam crossovers. I didn't pick that one up. I picked up the original one, the Marvel vs. DC omnibus. I did grab that.
I didn't know this came out, but no, I did not pick it up.
All right, cool. So let's see. I guess for now we're on our number 2. So what was your number 2, Brent?
Ultimate Wolverine. So we already got.
What about you, Kat?
Mine was Minor Arcana.
Sweet. And mine was actually Feral, issue 9. So let's just move on to number 1, because we talked about the other books. My number 1 was the book that we just talked about, which is You Won't Feel a Thing, just because it completely surprised me. And I'm curious to see the direction of this book on how the mystery is solved here. And what about you, Kat?
Exceptional X-Men. Because I love that book. Even when it's not the best issue, somehow, because even this week there was a lot of solid books, but there wasn't anything we're like, wow, that's comics, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
And what about you, Brent?
Mine was Green Lantern. Fracture Spectrum.
Oh, cool. Good. Awesome.
So I think we'll do the. Oh, go on.
Hold on. Joseph asked about New Gods. I read issue 2 of New Gods, and I thought issue 2 was actually an improvement for issue 1. My big thing about New Gods is was I like the story that takes place between like Mr. Miracle and Big Barda in there. And Mr. Miracle has to make that decision. Do I supposedly destroy this kid that's going to be this new god or this god that, you know, could possibly pose a threat? And I thought that was very interesting. And he writes a letter to her and, you know, he says, I have to do this stuff. And I thought that part of the story is the best part. And then you got the stuff with like the apocalypse going on, which is okay. So there's certain elements. There's something going to go on in Apocalypse. Something's going to die. I don't know. There's this dream or whatever. I don't have that rich history with the New Gods to say, my God, this is the best book I have ever read, because again, I don't know these characters all that well. But the story with Mr. Miracle and Big Berta is the one that hits hold for me, because there's that family dynamic there.
I feel the same exact way. If the whole book was Mr. Miracle and Big Barda and their kid, and I would read that every day, every month, whatever. I love that part. The other part of it, I'm like you. I don't have a huge connection to the New Gods, and that conversation between Metron and Desaad was just, I was like, it was, I don't know, it was a little bit much for me. It just, I don't know. I don't really know how to put into words how I felt trying to read that, because it was a lot of what's the word I'm looking for?
Is it a lot
I
of
don't know.
lore that you don't know, maybe?
Yeah, a lot of lore, a lot of explanation about things that I don't really quite grasp in the way that they work on Apocalypse and with the New Gods and all that stuff. So yeah, but yeah, I like the other half of it.
Cool.
And other people asked about Horizon Experiment one shots, and then never even heard of that. And then Action Comics. I think we all dropped Action Comics, I believe.
I don't currently.
I'm actually reading it. I read this issue. It's
okay, so you're reading
I didn't love this new issue. It was a brand new arc, and it was Superman kind of upset because this guy, Major Disaster, turned back to a life of crime after he accidentally killed somebody, and it made Superman really mad. And instead of being mad at the villain, people were mad at Superman because he was acting off. It was weird. It was a weird read for me.
Is it still weekly?
No, not now. This was the first issue of not weekly. So now
it's gotcha. So it's finally done. Okay.
Yeah. And then the Horizon Experiments, I've read one of them, the very first one they put out, which was, they're all like people in film writing alternate takes on classic stuff. So like this latest one was supposed to be like a reverse Indiana Jones. I did not read that one, and like one was supposed to be like an Asian James Bond, stuff like that. So
okay, I have heard of these, but I haven't read
interesting stuff. I just haven't read any of the others.
Next week, like we said, we'll talk more about like the smaller pieces that came out for news, but two news pieces we're going to talk about before we go to most anticipated for next week is the Daredevil trailer and the Dan Slott news. Daredevil trailer, I thought it was everything you would want from the Daredevil show. I don't think they lessened anything for Disney Plus. If you love the Daredevil show, it seems like you're going to like this one.
I agree 100%, man. It looked very much like a sequel from the first one. It looked great. I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, I'm thankful.
I was actually surprised.
Yeah.
Go on, Brett.
I was just, I said what I was going to say. I'm thankful they didn't change it too much. So.
No, I was just going to say, I was surprised that a lot of times when you have so many years off, like something feels off from it. It feels like it's not the same show, but honestly, like it feels so much like the same show. I'm actually very surprised by that.
Right.
The other thing was going to cover any Radiant Black news that was just revealed. I think we did a good job at covering Radiant Black. The other thing was Dan Slott is doing Superman. Again, it's kind of been teased and rumored for a while. But I think it's really cool that he's doing something other than Spider-Man or Marvel. I still want to see Dan Slott do more indie books. I want to see his voice in that. I think in that field, I'm just shocked he never has done one. But yeah, I want to see his take on Superman. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun.
I personally, I want to see his take on it. I wouldn't lie if I'm concerned though. Just
it's
because
not Superman himself though. It's just like its own series.
No, I know
Superman
that.
Unlimited,
I'm just saying that he's written other things where it's just like I wasn't a huge fan of like maybe some of his issues of like Fantastic Four. But that like going back to that Iron Man series that he wrote, and things like that wasn't the greatest. And so I'm very curious how he's going to write Superman. I'm not gonna lie, because everything that he writes mainly is all Spider-Man stuff. So I'm just interested to see what he does with this character, even though it's a limited series. I will be very curious to see what happens here.
Yeah. I'm very intrigued. I definitely want to see what he does with the character.
Cool. I think we're gonna go into most anticipated. So, Brent.
Yeah, and all our ones and twos are the same book, so we'll
I
just
know.
do our
It's
number
funny.
threes real quick. Mike, yours is Absolute Wonder Woman. We're all reading it. Yeah, so it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, Absolute Wonder Woman. I think the third issue sold the series for me to where, like, okay, now finally I'm in it, because I just felt like Wonder Woman had a lot of heart in that issue. You know, she did what she had to
Yeah.
do to, she severed her arm, and things like that. So you saw where that arm came from. And I just like how she stood up, and, I don't know, man, I really like that issue. The best one so far, in my opinion.
Gotcha. I'm still not quite sold, but I'm still going to keep reading it. So
Gotcha.
that's where I'm at. All right. Sticking with Wonder Woman, Cats is Wonder Woman number 17. So.
Yeah, this one has the Wonder Girls teaming up. I always love when they're featured, so that's mostly why this is in my top 3. I do think that as Tom King does, things have slowed down a little bit, and I'm just like, just get back to things that are interesting. But yeah, if you're bringing these characters in, I hope that kind of brings the series back. And yeah, for me, I like Wonder Woman more than Absolute Wonder Woman currently, but we'll see as how it goes.
Yeah, same. And mine is Void Rivals, issue 16. We've got Pythona from Cobra Law fame battling Skuxoid, who is this dude that just picks up stuff and sells it every chance he gets. And so, yeah, that's going to be interesting to see those two forces battle.
That's going to be fun. He's like almost like a collector guy, but like you said, he sells stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. All right, and so we'll go to our number 2s, which is Superman number 22. Superman is teaming up with Doomsday, which is something
this
I never
arc
thought
has
I'd
been
say.
crazy. Like this, it's like every issue's been killing it. Like I love the series, and it's what every superhero book should try to be.
Yeah, there's like an alien race that's going after Doomsday, I think, and that's kind of like they want Doomsday, so that will be interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And then finally, Ultimate Spider-Man number 13, always at the top of our list. And this one they describe it as a love letter to Kraven's Last Hunt. So I'm very curious to see how they handle that story in this version of the Ultimate Universe.
And it's the start of the new kind of, I say arc, but the new year, because that last issue was really like, let's close things off to begin something new. So, yeah, this book, again, it's interesting because I know there's complaints about this book because it's not action heavy. And I always say, like, if you're looking just for blockbuster action, go read Amazing Spider-Man. That's what that is. This is for the Spider-Man fans who want more character-driven stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then what happens is when there is action, it does make it that much more enjoyable because you can appreciate it more, but it'll be really interesting to see this version of Kraven, maybe how the hunt goes. Harry's in this book as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to it, man. I think this could be probably one of the better arcs, that we've seen in here so far.
Yeah, for sure. And that is it. That's all our anticipated.
And you know what? We finished everything in record timing. Even though we had a whole interview, we still finished a show around the same time we always finished a show.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah. It was a great show. It really was. I think I had to kind of speed through this a little bit quicker than usual just because, like, I'm in this garage, man. And like I said, it's 39 degrees outside. So it's some cold air in here. But it was a great show talking to those guys and letting you guys know all the news of what's going on with Rogue Sun and Radiant Black. And if you came on late, check out the beginning of this show. It's probably about the first 50 minutes or so where we're talking with them about those titles and things to come. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. If you haven't subscribed to any of our channels yet, what are you waiting for? Go ahead and do that now. Just got to do it. Just, subscribe to Only Good Comics, Comic Uno, Comic Book Corner 2.0. Subscribe to the Comic Book Weekly YouTube channel so you can watch all the episodes whenever you want, and hit those thumbs up and notification bells so you don't miss anything from us. And of course, guys, Have a great new comic book day. Good luck in getting your comic books this week. I think there's going to be some delays, probably due to weather concerns and all that stuff. So I know some of my books are delayed. So very interesting to see what happens. So guys, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you all next week. Thanks, guys. Good night.